Welcome back to the news, everybody. So, a fantastic game has came out, and it's a very traditionally fantastic game in that it is single player. It's not pulling any funny business. There's no BS monetization, the sorts of things that basically get everybody up in arms. So, part of the question today is, why? Why is it that this kind of thing can regularly happen from Insomniac games, yet so much of the rest of the industry manages to, do game industry things and not exactly give customers a great day one experience? So, yes, we're talking about Spider-Man 2 because it is a very noteworthy game. It essentially represents the platonic ideal of, video games being both great as products, great as art, the absolute gold standard. Look at the reviews. Top critic average 91%. Critics recommend 100%. This is in fact Insomniac's first over 90 game since 2004's Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal, which is quite the achievement. Of course, Spider-Man 1, while not that well reviewed, was still marvelously reviewed, and they are riding high on just a string of crazy well-reviewed games. Just taking a look, like this year's Spider-Man 2, the first one exclusively for the PS5, is the formula at its most refined and maximalist, with even more stuff to do and no shortage of ways to look and feel amazing while do it. Being Spider-Man has never felt better or looked prettier. That's from Ethan at Kotaku. And as you go through the reviews, that's essentially what you see everywhere. Now, of course, not everything is absolutely perfect, but broadly speaking, if you liked things in Spider-Man, like the great movement and open world that feels characterful, big set pieces, and a big superhero story with plenty of heart, those things are still there and better. If you didn't like some things, well, those are basically improved. The stealth sequences are updated with more mechanics and less screen time. There's an even more ambitious fast travel system, and honestly, looking at how this fast travel system works, like you open the map, you say where you want to go, you hold the button to go there, the map goes away, and you swing onto screen and you're already there. It really does make the loading technology of the PS5 look like demon magic, which is absolutely incredible. Of course, the only thing that's going to be up in the air is, do you resonate with the narrative and the character work that they have decided on following, right? Do you like the direction that they've went with perhaps some of the canon, because it is moving away from Earth 616? But overall, while that is not amazing for absolutely everybody, the overall game experience does seem to be there. And there are funny things like, hey, did you complain about puddles in the first game? Well, the team has absolutely made sure that you will have your next-gen puddles. I told you we had next-gen puddles. Yeah, there you go. Look at them. Look at them in all of their next-gen glory. They are very nice indeed. Do you think that maybe New York wasn't populated enough? I mean, take a look at New York here in the first game, and now New York in the second game. Of course, both comparing fidelity mode to fidelity mode, and you can see that is quite a lot of people. Very impressive. So in short, this is an iteration of the design, and it's very clear what was allowed for this iteration, because if you actually look at what Insomniac have done, it's insane. At least in terms of their A team, because they have had Seedling, Stormland, and Strangelets for the Magic Leap and for VR, but mostly speaking, yes, it's been Spider-Man 2018, Miles Morales 2020, Spider-Man Remastered also 2020, Rift Apart in 2021, in 2023 Spider-Man 2, and then at some point in the future, Marvel's Wolverine. They made Spider-Man, they made DLC for Spider-Man, they made a standalone expansion and fixed up base Spider-Man to make use of the PS5, and then they used all that to make Spider-Man 2. In a way, this does feel like Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, in that there will be some pretty reductionist people, maybe some of those Xbox NPCs that you find on Twitter that will say, oh, these game devs are lazy. That intersection looks the same. And you're like, yeah, they're both set in New York. What do you expect? But broadly, the point is that off a very, very strong baseline, they've been able to iterate, to hone, to perfect, and much like how Tears of the Kingdom absolutely stunned people after Breath of the Wild, Spider-Man 2 broadly seems it's able to do that. And there's a really good quote from Brian, the creative director, that I'm going to be leaning on heavily here, about how making these games is something that has basically developed the studio as well. And I just think it's good to know. There are a lot of people who have worked on all these games. What's been really awesome is seeing Insomniacs from Spider-Man 1 to Miles to Spider-Man 2 become leaders. We've seen so many people elevate who will go on to be the next leaders of our studio. I can't speak for whether they like having different opportunities. I'm sure they do. That's one of the great things about Insomniac. We have lots of games in development, but what's great for me is we're seeing these new leaders emerge. Basically, the point here is you're having iterative progression by the same teams, building on their knowledge, building on their processes and all of that, to the point where, if you then put into that mix a decently low level of staff attrition, not only are you building games that will go out and sell, but you're also building the machine that makes games. That is, of course, your game studio. And we see in so many instances what happens when games are made, but at the expense of the machine that makes the games. The idea of, you're going to give it one last run, you're going to absolutely, perform A-team shit. Mission accomplished, but you look back at your car and it's totally destroyed. How many studios have had massive attrition and all of that as they have made games? I mean, just take a look at some of the EA horror stories. Look at how DICE was a revolving door, and it's only really around now that they're actually able to claw that back. Another thing then is just how good these games actually feel for us as consumers, because sure, there were pre-order bonuses there, but the price of entry is the price of entry. And that they haven't gone with premium early access to this game, I think is really good, because if Sony leaned into doing that on their titles, we would be in a bad state, because that would basically codify that as the industry norm. Whereas at least right now we can kind of say that for Microsoft, it's a halfway house to give away their big, massive budget, multi-year development AAA games. I don't want to say for free in Game Pass, but to use them as a growth vehicle for Game Pass, but also to still recognize plenty of launch day revenue. It's kind of a weird Microsoft quirk of their bizarre hybrid business model. If Sony wanted to take some flack, maybe to try to get some more money, they could have tried to do that sort of thing. It's really damn good that they haven't, because the degradation of the day one official launch experience as being the ideal thing to do, that is something that's been happening for years, and I'm not really that comfortable with it. Even going as far back to, say, Rome 2 Total War, where, if you pre-ordered the game, I think you got Sparta and a few of the Greek city-states? Basically, it was the thing of, hey, this is going to launch, and there's a DLC included, but if you pre-order, you get the DLC. Which just kind of means that everyone kind of feels like they are stupid not to pre-order. And of course, with games like with Rome 2, which actually I think Rome 2 Total War was my, as a gamer, my first experience of a truly horrendous launch experience. Something, of course, we've all become very familiar with. But it was also one of my first experiences with a degraded baseline player, day one purchase experience, which is now something we see super broadly in the industry. So it's just real nice that they did not lean into that. And also what's really good is, you see, if you buy the physical version of this game, well, you don't need to patch it. Now, there are improvements. There is a day one patch, and the reason why is because physical distribution. I mean, the game goes gold, but it's not like that means your developers just get turned off, ready to be turned back on when the next full production happens. You still will have some shippable bugs, because look, software is really damn hard, especially when we're dealing with really large games and really large teams. And that just means that after the game goes gold, they're still working, making the build better. So yes, there's a day one patch, which in a way is good because it means they're using that time wisely, but they've got the game at gold seemingly to a good enough standard where you can just play it on the disc. You are actually able to go to the store, buy a game disc, have no internet at your house, put the disc in your console and play the video game. Insane in the year 2023. To jump back though, Sony are actually doing something rather wise here, because one element of this success is seemingly PlayStation's willingness to not set public expectations anymore. Spiderman 2 was first announced in 2021 alongside Wolverine. The release date was not revealed until Summer Games Fest in June 2023, and that was only a few months before the release. Now, of course, internally they will have had all their, internal release targets and things like that, and there probably was some slippage with those, as is fairly normal. But what is key here is that internal process was safeguarded from having a big public release date that would have set expectations with customers, and also really pressured staff into getting pretty damn crunchy. And of course, we don't want staff to be crunchy, because we want them to be able to make games sustainably, stay for the long run, and like with Insomniac, actually build up studios that are really good at making games sustainably, so that we can have strings of hits and get well rewarded as customers. And here's what Brian said about that. So we're always evolving and challenging ourselves to do better. Miles had a better production process than Spider-Man 1. Ratchet & Clank has a better production process than Miles. We're always evaluating and improving. Have we perfected it? No, but we're always asking how we can make the process better for everybody. We are honest with ourselves. We don't do everything perfect, and that allows us to have an open mind about how we can do better. Not just in terms of making the game better, but also to feel better about coming to work every day. We'll be learning a lot from this project as well. So it seems like that is a healthy challenge to do better and better and better. And look, the more that we get quality products with fewer negative externalities that we only pay for in a roundabout way, with that roundabout way being the degradation, ethically, business practice wise, etc., of our industry, that is a really good thing. Because people may say, well, I don't really care how the game's made. I don't care if a bunch of devs were crushed making this game. I just want the product at the end. It's like, yeah, but I mean, think about the food supply chain. Would you rather the beef you ate came from a cow that wasn't in a horrible situation? Would you rather, if you have chicken, that it's not some absolute battery farm hellscape that, has a bunch of negative externalities that probably leads to that meat being lower quality and you being able to trust the food supply chain less? In the same way, like with video games, if we allow games to be an absolute shit show to make, all those negative externalities pile up, and suddenly you, even though you still don't care about the developers, somehow you just have an increasing quantity of games that are total shit shows on launch. And then you're left wondering, why is this? Maybe should I care about how these games are made? Because maybe if they're made sustainably and well, I'll get more video games to buy that are good. And on that topic, we of course cannot confirm that nobody crunched on this game. It would be kind of irresponsible to say that. We also cannot say that they've always done right by their staff. There are some historical claims to the contrary that, are worth consideration, right? But what we can do, and what is based on some evidence, is that in recent years, Insomniac has been getting really good reputation, right? A really good reputation for not treating their staff terribly in the pursuit of profit. There's, of course, good messages coming from the top with the CEO, Ted Price, saying that excellence in games can't come at the cost of staff well-being. Achieving a balance between excellence and well-being is, at least in my opinion, a crucial goal, he said. But what really matters is that this is backed up by statements from people who actually worked on these projects. And that actually means that Insomniac sounds like a company that genuinely does want to foster a healthy environment, that genuinely then will be able to attract great talent. Because at the end of the day, really good developers are needed to make really good video games. These people, these professionals, with all their skill and experience, actually do command a good market value. So that means that in the competition between different companies, Insomniac can compete. Because you not only are competing on your game design and all that, you're competing with your competitors on human resource, right? On, workplace experience, all those things that are really vital to actually having a good team. As an example of that, here's Grant saying that, he can, of course, only speak for himself, but he never was crunching, right? And it was 40-hour weeks the whole time. Going on to say, I was very encouraged by how my managers actively pushed for me to avoid burnout. That's important because guess what? As a manager, if your staff burn out, you're really going to be screwed. So if you're a good manager, you'll try to make sure that doesn't happen. And this is, of course, contrasted by many situations that have went on in many other games companies and all the horror stories that we, of course, have heard about. And in terms of flexible working conditions, they're also doing really well. And it's one of those things, if you are, I think, a bad company with bad processes or a young company that still needs to improve what it's doing, work from home could be a little bit of a disaster if you do not have those processes and that culture being an absolutely watertight thing. If you are that good and your processes are that good, then absolutely you can make that work really well and you can actually reap so many benefits from that, meaning that being able to offer that really is a goal that I think companies should aspire to where possible, because also in the competition of the jobs market, that makes you stand out against the competition. And that's basically that. They're proving that you can make really good games without crunch, and the thing that really matters there is that they've been able to have a consistent track record of amazing games. We then must ask, how is it that these people are absolutely running the marathon, having hit after hit after hit after hit? And it does make me think, right? Say, Blizzard Untitled survival game that's probably been in the works for ages. Or, what's that superhero game from Rocksteady, the Suicide Squad, where you kill the Batman or something, that's been in development for absolutely ages, that seems like something nobody really asked for. It's like, you could do all of that clownery, or you could just make video games. And make an expand-alone, and then make another video game. Imagine if Blizzard had done a Warcraft 4 and a Warcraft 4 expansion. Or if they just kept it going with StarCraft, or if they maybe decided to make something in the Warcraft IP that was maybe some sort of like narrative, action RPG or whatever, and it maybe wasn't going to be a multi-billion-dollar game, but it was just going to be a game that was really good. What if they did something like Riot Forge? We just keep on seeing like the games industry making all of these massive live service bets all over the place. So many of them fail, yet quietly over in the corner here, we have Insomniac doing this. And I would hope that with Insomniac being able to do this, Respawn Entertainment being able to do what they do with the Jedi series, that a lot of these companies start to realize that you can actually make single-player blockbusters, and they can be really good. While they could be hard to make, in some ways, they're maybe a safer bet than risking it all on a humongous live service title that has got to reach such a critical mass of player engagement and is probably going to start having really, really high customer acquisition costs that, it's just hard to be sustainable, you just look at this and it's like, hey, what have these devs done? They've just made everyone really fucking happy for 5 years in a row. Is that not absolutely wonderful? And this is totally just the gold standard, I think, of what we should be aspiring to. So there you go, props to him, a certified banger of a game in a month that, by the way, has been absolutely crammed full of them. So, are you playing the game? Let me know how that's been for you, and I'll see you next time.